Hi, Tony Southwell here. Now, I did a podcast recently called "On the Couch with Hooley," and there was a part of that podcast where I was talking about my views on speedway promotion in Australia, and in particular what's happening at Eastern Creek. That short 3 or 4 minute piece I did has just gone nuts. It's all over. It's just gone completely viral. It's been shared like hundreds and hundreds of times on all sorts of pages, on personal pages, on racing pages, just everywhere. And I've never had so many people reach out to me and message me and send me friend requests, people from Speedway who wanted to thank me for what I said. I have to admit, there was a handful of negative comments I got from people, but on the whole, it was very positive. There was one thing that I got pulled up on that a lot of people said was incorrect, and that was when I spoke about the 50-50 raffle, where I said that 50% of it went to the winner and 50% went to buy trophies for the sprint car teams. Well, I got that information from the first telecast of the first race at Eastern Creek on the Speedway Australia stream. They said it repeatedly, those exact words. I've gone back and had a look at it, and that's what it says. So if I got that wrong, I got it wrong because of the information coming out of Speedway Australia. So moving on, I've been contacted by race teams, race drivers, officials, all sorts of people who work in Speedway and are involved in Speedway, and who are as passionate about it as I am, and who feel the same way I do. There's a couple of problems. The problems with the track itself, the construction problems, they'll fix. That's just a remedial thing that the contractors are going to have to come back and take care of. So that's not really an issue. It's a teething problem. They'll get those things fixed. My issues are the professionalism, or the lack of professionalism, in the way it's being promoted and run. This is an $80 million plus facility. It's a state-of-the-art speedway facility in Australia, and it's not being treated like an $80 million facility. It's being treated like Uncle Bill's bush track, go-kart track out the back of his farm somewhere. And one of the sprint car drivers who contacted me told me that they didn't even have safety crews for the first race meeting. And they didn't find out until afterwards there was no safety crews. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, that's a real problem. The other thing I found out is that, well, I knew there was no flag stand, and the flag marshal has just been poking his head through a hole in the wire netting in the fence. That fence is there for a reason, to keep people safe, not to poke your head through. I don't know how Speedway Australia could let that happen and allow that to happen. And what concerns me is the conflict of interest that might be there. As the promoter from Sydney, also is a stakeholder in Speedway Australia. So would Speedway Australia allow other tracks to get away with that? To not having safety crews in the infield, and for having this flag marshal poking his head through a hole in the fence? I don't know whether they would. So that concerns me. And the other thing that concerns me is just the way it's being handled. This is a big deal, this track. It's an incredible investment by the New South Wales government, and it's just being treated like a bush track somewhere. They should have a social media team running the social media, a proper social media company, not someone who's just done a course and thinks that they know how to do it. An actual social media company should be running their social media. And I know it's a family member who's doing the on-screen stuff on social media, and she presents great, but it's obvious she's had no media training. You need to have somebody on there who's had proper media training, who knows what they're doing and knows how to look like a professional media representative. This is an $80 million facility. I can't stress it enough. You need to watch NASCAR and watch how their on-track reporters speak and act. All those people go through intensive media training before they're allowed anywhere near a microphone or a camera. The promotion side of it is very poor. It's just not happening. They just don't. They should be an event management team in place to run that facility. The New South Wales government blew it. They made a huge mistake. I'm not saying that they put the wrong people in. I'm saying they shouldn't have put anyone in. They should have put an event, a major event management team in. They've got their own major event management teams in place in Sydney already. The government do. They should have put one of those in there to run it. Bring some Speedway people in with experience in running a track and programming events and track preparation and running the actual race meeting. For sure, you need Speedway people to do that. They should have done that. But they should have put an event management team in place, a proper promoter in place who knows the ins and outs of how to do it properly at a level that I'm talking about. A social media company to run all the social media platforms and do it properly, and get the word out to the Sydney as a whole. Because the problem at the moment is Sydney as a whole don't know anything about it. There's people I know in Sydney who aren't in racing who don't even know there's an $80 million facility being built at Eastern Creek to run Speedway on. The only people who know are Speedway people. And it's wrong. This should be a big deal. Everyone should know about it. Everyone should know. I got slammed by a couple of people because I went back talking about the early days of sedan racing in the 70s, 80s and early 90s and how successful it was. Well, let me tell you again, all those guys were rock stars. All those people in those days were rock stars. Their names were household names. And it was simply because of advertising on television, on radio, on print media, everywhere. So even if you didn't go to the Speedway, you knew who they were because you heard their names every weekend. And the travelling circus with Americans versus Australia would travel around Australia, and everyone in every area where there's a Speedway would see the saturation on television and on radio and know about it. Now we don't know anything about it. We need to create stars again. We need to get the right people in place. The New South Wales government need to be running that place, and they need to be running it properly. I'm sorry. This will probably piss off the people who are in there now, but I don't care. I care about Speedway. I care about people, the track being run properly, and the teams being looked after properly. Not being charged to be there, not charging their families to be there, not charging their crew to be there. It's so unprofessional. It's absolutely unprofessional. You can't, in my game, booking music events, I can't charge the band members to be there who are playing for the whoever the headliner is. How would I look if I start saying to the band members, you've all got to pay $15 to get in? It just doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense in Speedway either. It's exactly the same. And don't say it's not, because it is. And lots of people came back with all these silly arguments, but they're just people who know nothing about what I'm talking about. This needs to be taken over or get the right people in there to do it properly, because this could be huge for Sydney. This could be huge for the whole of Australian Speedway if it's handled correctly. And at the moment, sadly, it's not. So I'm happy for you to comment. I'm happy for you to tell me what you think. I'm happy for you to share this about. I care about motorsport. I care about dirt track racing, and I'm passionate about it, and I'm not going to apologise for that. All the best.